The year, 1919, Versailles, France, the place where the war to end all wars would be ended. This bloody war took the lives of 16 million and injured 20 million more. It supported some of the strongest militaries at the time. From strong empires to neutral nations, the war included Germany, France, Russia, Great Britain, Austria-Hungary, and many more. But how did this massacre arise? It surely did not commence overnight.
World War I consisted of the most powerful armies ever seen in the history of mankind. These armies were built on an idea known as militarism, the glorification of one's military and a nation's preparedness for war. World War I era nations of all sizes began to build bigger, better armies in an attempt to outgun and outman opposing forces and rivaling nations. A great example of militarism during the war can be found at sea. As tension rose between nations, a global arms race began to unfold. As most people know, a couple years before the war, one of the most influential nations, Great Britain, had the largest naval force ever. This then caused the Germans to go and build up their navy in an attempt to outgun the British. This process repeated itself many times until war seemed inevitable.
Alright, I'm Asfand. I run the suburbs of Chicago, South Chicago to be exact, because I'm just that nice. You already know I run this. Alright, yo, it's raining outside? What? Alright, whatever. I got a full scholarship for ACTC. How many of y'all get that? None. And guess what? I turned it down because I'm that nice. Now, none of that. Militarism. You know that thing with the people got big guns, armies, they think they all the good species. Follow me on that.
In many ways, the dueling countries of World War I can be compared to the Kardashian sisters. With their high egos and constant fighting, they're practically the same thing. Now, during the 1900s, there was definitely a feeling of nationalism. You know, that extreme pride in one's country. All around Europe, the populations of the world rose to the war effort and supported the cause. This included enlisting, creating propaganda, and even farming crops to send to the troops. That's what I call dedication.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. So now that you know about nationalism, I'm here to talk to you about a specific event that was greatly impacted by that movement. As I'm sure you know by now, one major event that sparked the First World War was the assassination of the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, Franz Ferdinand. Gavrilo Princip, the perpetrator of the assassination, was definitely influenced by a Serbian sense of nationalism. The entire reason behind the shooting was to create a new, free Slavic state. Revolutionaries cried for the assassination of the Archduke. Nationalism caused a terrorist group called the Black Hand to form, and not too long after that, Ferdinand was dead.
Now, just what is imperialism? Imperialism is the complete domination of a nation's way of life by another country. Imperialism is one of the greatest causes of World War I. Imperialism back in the late 1800s and early 1900s was definitely something to fear. Just imagine, today you're at home and all of a sudden a group of foreign authority begins barking and commanding orders. You feel violated and controlled. It's exactly what some people felt like during the age of imperialism. Entire continents like Africa were divided by different European forces. This still did not satisfy the Europeans though. Tensions rose and armies grew larger in order to gain access to more and more resources to feed the growing movement of the industry.
OxyClean. Now, let me take you on a journey to before World War I. Imperialism can be traced back to numerous countries during World War I. One of the most significant examples is definitely found in Great Britain. In fact, it was even once said that the sun never set in the British Empire. It was a powerful quote, because this captured a feeling of resentment from the nations that were being imperialized by the superpower Great Britain. The lands Great Britain held included territories from Australia to Hong Kong, New Zealand to South Africa, and even more in between. The larger Great Britain grew, the angrier other European nations became. This resentment built up over the years, and eventually became one of the leading causes of World War I.
As you can imagine, World War I was like a children's game of tag, all except for the countless tragic deaths, of course. As Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, the Germans backed them up by mobilizing their forces. Russia took Serbia's side, and so on. The sides built up until the Allies consisted of France, Great Britain, Russia, and eventually the United States, and the Central Powers held the militaries of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and the indecisive Italy. Obviously, these secret alliances had a major impact on the war that left the world mourning for their loved ones.
The death of Franz Ferdinand can only be described in one way: unfortunate. While he was in just another Archduke parade, a black-hand terrorist launched a bomb in Ferdinand's direction. Luckily, he was not hit by the bomb. However, when it did explode, a nearby civilian was seriously injured and hospitalized. Later that day, Franz Ferdinand went to visit that man in the hospital. But on his way there, his car stalled near a deli. Ironically, at this deli was another black-hand terrorist armed with a gun. The man, Gavrilo Princip, seized the moment and shot Franz Ferdinand. Austro-Hungarians were angered at this event, and it later turned out to be the major starting point of one of the most influential wars of all time.
I can still remember the day my father was shot. June 28th, 1914. It was a Sunday afternoon. It seemed like any other day. All he wanted was to visit the men who died or got hurt in the attempt to kill my father. Shortly after his death, all I remember is mass confusion, everybody running everywhere. I was in disbelief. I'm sorry. This is such a touchy subject for me.
To put this into perspective, imagine this comparison. You're standing by a pond and you throw a small pebble into the water. It creates a small wave around the place where the stone entered the pond. The wave moves outwards and grows bigger, allowing room for smaller waves to be created. They continue to grow and grow and grow. The pebble represents World War I, and the inner waves represent the events that were brought by the war to end all wars. As you have learned from the past program, World War I was one of the most influential events of all time. The uber-important conflicts that were sparked by the First World War definitely had a lasting effect that shaped and continued to shape the modern world. From World War II to the Cold War, the world would not be the same place had the First World War not happened, and to think it all started with a single bang.